It started with a vibration, that aggressive, relentless buzzing against the glass nightstand that pulls you out of a deep sleep. 5 a.m. The room was bathed in the cold, blue light of dawn, a color that felt less like morning and more like a warning. I reached for the phone, swiping away the notification without looking, unaware that my life had just been dismantled while I slept. By 8 a.m., the warning turned into a siren. I was standing in my local coffee shop, the air smelling of roasted beans and rain. I swiped my card. Beep. The sound was harsh, rejecting. Declined. The machine flashed in red. The silence that followed was louder than the noise of the shop. The heat didn't come from the latte. It crawled up my neck, a prickly, suffocating shame as the barista offered a pitying smile. I opened my banking app, praying for a glitch. Instead, I found a crime scene. $50,000. Gone. A pending transfer stared back at me, but the horror wasn't the number. It was the authorization slip attached to the digital receipt. I recognized the jagged loop of the L. I recognized the aggressive slant. This wasn't a hacker from the dark web. This was intimate. The thief wasn't a stranger. The thief was blood. Before we watch this house of lies crumble, to understand the thief, you have to understand the thief. My cousin, Mira. We were sitting at the family dinner table 3 weeks prior, bathed in warm, golden light that was meant to feel inviting, but only spotlighted the fatigue etched into my skin. I had just come off a 60-hour work week, sitting there in a blazer that I was too tired to take off. And then there was Mira. Loud, draped in a designer dress that cost more than my first car, a dress I knew she put on a credit card she had no intention of paying off. She laughed with her mouth wide open, a performance for an audience of enablers, while I quietly cut my food, invisible until she needed something. The shift happened in the kitchen. I had gone in to get water and the air instantly changed. The savory, homey smell of roasting meat was suddenly overpowered by the cloying, floral stench of Mira's expensive perfume. She cornered me between the granite island and the fridge. There was no small talk, no, "How are you?" Just the demand, wrapped in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She wanted $50,000, a seed investment for a boutique she claimed was a gold mine. I told her the truth. My money was locked up. It was my down payment for a house, my exit strategy from renting. I said no. Politely, but firmly. That single no was treated like a declaration of war. My aunt, Mira's mother, swooped in like a hawk protecting a viper. She didn't ask why I refused. She attacked my character. "You're so stingy, Alara," she hissed, wiping red wine from her lip. "Family helps family. You have so much, why can't you share?" It was the family mantra, designed to bleed the responsible ones dry. Behind her mother's shoulder, Mira didn't look disappointed. She looked cold. Her eyes went flat, reptilian, calculating exactly how to take what I wouldn't give. The kitchen felt airless, heavy with years of unspoken resentment and toxic entitlement. I should have left right then. But guilt is a powerful anchor. Instead, I tried to be helpful. I rolled up my sleeves to wash the dishes, leaving my leather purse on the counter behind me. It was a foolish, fatal mistake. Amidst the clatter of porcelain and the rush of running water, I missed the sound that would eventually ruin me. A soft, metallic zip. A shadow lingering just a second too long near my bag. I didn't see it then, but looking back, I can almost feel the ghost of her hand sliding into my privacy, stealing my identity while I stood there scrubbing her mother's plates. The inside of the bank felt less like a financial institution and more like a morgue. Sterile, white walls. The air conditioner hummed a monotone, maddening drone that seemed to drill directly into my temples. I sat across from the bank manager, a man who looked at me with professional pity, his hands folded on the polished mahogany desk. He didn't speak. He just slid the withdrawal slip toward me. It moved across the wood with a dry rasp, a sound that felt like a gavel striking a block. "We verified the signature on file," he said softly, "but if you say this wasn't you, take a look." I looked down and the world tilted. It was my name, yes, but it was a caricature of my identity. The letters were too sharp, too hurried. My signature flows. This one stabbed the paper. The loop on the L was the giveaway. It was jagged, aggressive, a distinctive tick I had seen 1,000 times on Mira's birthday cards and credit card slips. It was her hand, forcing my name. My fingers curled into a fist, crumpling the edge of the document. The paper crunching under my grip was the only sound I could make. It wasn't just theft, it was a violation. She hadn't just taken my money, she had worn my skin to do it. I didn't wait. I walked out into the parking lot and dialed Mira. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hey, cousin," she chirped. I could hear the rushing wind in the background, the roar of an engine. She was driving something fast, something new. When I confronted her, when I screamed that I was holding the forgery in my hand, she didn't gasp. She laughed. A light, airy, terrifying laugh. "Oh, Ilara, relax," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You promised to help me with the business. You signed that slip last week when we were having wine, remember? You were pretty drunk. Don't be dramatic." The audacity took my breath away. She was rewriting history in real time, gaslighting me with such confidence that for a split second, I questioned my own sanity. But the nightmare was just beginning. I hung up, shaking, ready to go to the police. But before I could even start the car, my phone lit up. Not with an apology, but with an assault. My aunt, my cousins. A barrage of texts flooded the screen, weaponized and coordinated. "How dare you threaten Mira?" one read. "Having buyer's remorse on a gift is pathetic, Ilara," read another. "She's trying to build a future and you're trying to frame her because you're jealous." They had circled the wagons. In their version of the story, I wasn't the victim of a felony. I was a bitter, unstable woman trying to destroy the family's struggling dreamer. I sat in my car, the engine cold, realizing the terrifying truth. I wasn't just fighting a thief. I was fighting my entire bloodline. I was completely, utterly alone. There is a specific moment when a heart breaks, but there is a far more dangerous moment when it hardens. For 3 days, I was a ghost in my own apartment, drowning in used tissues and the warm, suffocating amber light of depression. But on the 4th morning, the crying simply stopped. It was as if a switch had been flipped behind my eyes. I stood up, walked to the mirror, and saw someone new staring back. I washed my face, the cold water shocking my skin awake. I pulled my hair back into a tight, severe knot. I turned off the warm lamps and opened the blinds, letting the clinical, merciless blue light of the city wash over the room. I wasn't sad anymore. I was efficient. The victim was gone. The hunter had arrived. I started with the ink. I didn't just guess it was a forgery. I paid to prove it. I sat in the office of a forensic handwriting analyst, watching a monitor that magnified my stolen name until the ink looked like rivers on a map. The analyst, a man who saw lies in loops and crosses, pointed a laser at the curve of the S. "Right here," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "See the ink pool? That's a hesitation mark." It was the microscopic pause where Mira's hand had stopped, unsure of how to mimic my flow, before dragging the pen forward. It was the tremor of deceit, captured in blue ballpoint. Science was stripping away her confidence, millimeter by millimeter. But handwriting was subjective. Physics was not. I opened my laptop and pulled the digital skeleton of my life, my Google location history, and my office security logs. The bank timestamp showed the withdrawal happened at 10:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. I pulled up my building's access log. At 10:12 a.m., I had swiped my badge to enter a secure server room 10 miles away. At 10:14 a.m., I was answering an email on a desktop with a static IP address. The data laid it out in black and white. Unless I had discovered the ability to teleport, it was physically impossible for me to be standing at a teller's window withdrawing cash. The gaslighting crumbled under the weight of zeros and ones. I had the weapon, now I just needed the confession. I set the stage for the final act. I invited the family ability by evidence. If I invited the family removing to the contract, This state of the word was remember as I'm self. I set the stage for the tea, playing the role they expected, the defeated, broken cousin ready to apologize. I set my phone on the table, face down, the voice memo app silently recording, and covered it with a linen napkin. Mira sat there, smug and untouchable, sipping her tea like she was royalty. I kept my head down, murmuring about how confused I was, how maybe I was stressed and forgot to sign it. Her guard dropped instantly. Arrogance is a loud thing, and Mira wanted to brag. "It's okay, Alara," she soothed, patting my hand. "I know you've been tired. Besides, the teller was so nice to me when I went in, she barely even checked the ID." The room went silent for me, though they kept talking. She had just admitted she was the one at the bank. She had just placed herself at the scene of the crime. Under the napkin, the red timer on my phone kept ticking, capturing every syllable of her downfall. The courtroom smelled of justice, a mix of old mahogany, floor polish, and the stale anxiety of 100 years of pleading. It was a cavernous theater, and Mira was determined to be the star. She arrived dressed in angelic white, a deliberate costume choice designed to scream innocence to the world. She sat at the defense table, dabbing at perfectly dry eyes with a tissue, playing the role of the victimized younger cousin to perfection. Behind her, my family filled the gallery rows like a jury of executioners, their eyes burning holes into the back of my head. They weren't there for the truth. They were there to witness my humiliation. Her lawyer was a man who specialized in twisting reality. He didn't argue the facts, he argued my sanity. "Your Honor," he boomed, pacing the floor with theatrical flair. "This is a simple case of buyer's remorse. The plaintiff, in a moment of drunken generosity, gifted this money to her struggling cousin, only to regret it when she saw her own bank balance. This isn't fraud, it's a family dispute weaponized by a jealous, unstable woman." The narrative was sickeningly effective. I saw the family nodding in rhythm, a sea of bobbing heads agreeing that I was the villain. Mira looked down, hiding a smirk behind her tissue. She thought she had won before the first piece of evidence was even shown. Then, it was my turn. They expected tears. They expected me to shout, to scream, to look unstable, like the lawyer promised. Instead, I gave them ice. I took the stand with the stillness of a statue. My voice didn't tremble. It was low, steady, and terrifyingly clear. I didn't talk about feelings. I didn't talk about betrayal. I talked about timestamps. I talked about IP addresses. I laid out the timeline of that Tuesday morning with surgical precision, dismantling the emotional fog they tried to create with cold, hard data. The room grew quieter with every sentence. I wasn't appealing to their hearts. I was aiming for their logic. Then came the screens. The lights dimmed and the projector hummed to life, casting a harsh white square on the wall. Evidence Exhibit A, the signatures. Enlarged to 5 feet tall, the difference was undeniable. My handwriting expert, a man with thick glasses and zero patience for nonsense, took the floor. He used a laser pointer to trace the jagged ink of the withdrawal slip. "This is not a fluid motion," he explained to the captivated room. "This is a drawing of a signature. See these micro-tremors? We call this the tremor of deceit." The hand hesitated because the brain knew it was lying. The science stripped Mira naked. Her drunken signature defense was dissolving into ink and shame. But we weren't done. My lawyer stood up, a small smile playing on his lips. "Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence, the bank's internal security footage." Mira stiffened. She had assumed, arrogantly, that cameras didn't look at the lobby, only the vault. She was wrong. The video played in. Grainy silence. We watched a woman walk into the bank. She wasn't wearing Mira's clothes. She was wearing a blazer like mine. She was wearing a wig cut to match my hair. But it was undeniably Mira. The camera zoomed in as she stood at the island table, not filling out a slip, but practicing. We watched her sign a napkin, look at it, crumple it up, and sign again. Practicing my name. Premeditation in high definition. The gasp from the gallery sucked the air out of the room. The family stopped nodding. My aunt put a hand over her mouth. There was no spinning this. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was identity theft performed in costume. The judge, a stern woman with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every variety of human greed, didn't wait for the video to finish. She raised a hand, silencing the defense lawyer before he could even stand up. She leaned over the bench, her black robe casting a long, ominous shadow over Mira, who had shrunk into her chair, looking very small and very dirty in her white dress. The silence was heavy, pressing down on us like a physical weight. The judge looked at Mira with an expression of pure disgust. "I have sat on this bench for 20 years, the judge said, her voice cutting through the room without a microphone. "And rarely have I seen such a parasitic display of entitlement." She didn't just deliver a verdict, she delivered an evisceration. She called the act morally bankrupt and predatory. She didn't just order the repayment of the $50,000, she slapped on maximum punitive damages for emotional distress and legal fees. "You wanted to be your cousin so badly," the judge said, looking down her nose. "Now you can pay her debts." She raised the gavel. The bang that followed echoed off the wooden walls like a gunshot, signaling the end of Mira's world and the beginning of mine. The gavel didn't just end the lawsuit, it started the nightmare. The bailiff moved with terrifying speed, stepping into the well of the court not to escort Mira, but to detain her. Fraud is a felony, and the judge had seen enough. The sharp, metallic clack of handcuffs biting into wrists echoed through the silence. Mira's white dress wasn't a costume of innocence anymore. It was a stark contrast to the steel restraining her. The arrogance melted instantly, replaced by ugly, raw panic. Mascara ran in black rivers down her face as she realized she wasn't going home. She was going to book. I didn't stay to wet my aunt, whose mouth hung open in silent horror. I didn't look at Mira, who was screaming my name, begging for the mercy she never showed me. I simply closed my file. The leather felt cool and smooth against my fingertips, the texture of victory. I stood up, smoothed my blazer, and turned my back on the chaos. The heavy oak doors of the courthouse swung open, releasing me into the blinding, beautiful afternoon sun. The air tasted different out here, cleaner, lighter. I slid my sunglasses on, the world turning a cool, protected shade of dark. The debt was settled, the parasite was removed. As I descended the marble steps, the truth settled in my bones. Blood makes you related, loyalty makes you family. And the law? The law makes you pay. If seeing those handcuffs click gave you a sense of peace, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm find more snakes to expose. And if you want more stories where the payback is personal and the justice is absolute, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We don't just tell stories here, we settle scores. See you in the next case.